Hello everyone, it's Anthony again here to bring you this week's jam-packed market recap. This week's market mover was Athlone, whose share price jumped over 40% following the announcement of their stellar quarterly results, which included a record quarter for revenue with $6.5 million in receipts, which was up 130% on the previous corresponding period. In a statement, Athlone said that the financial year 22 results was achieved despite serious macro headwinds throughout the year. This included prolonged COVID-19 restrictions, which prevented sales teams from calling on doctors, related staff impacts, and the floods in Queensland and northern New South Wales. The most notable market loser this week was the internet lottery and gaming company Jumbo Interactive, whose stock price saw a 21% loss this week. Most of this loss came on Friday following the release of their end of financial year results, which fell far below market expectations. This is despite Jumbo experiencing a strong growth, with EBITDA rising 16% from financial year 2021. In June, inflation in the US soared to 9.1%, marking the fastest pace of inflation going back to November 1981. This rise came from across the board, although key drivers were the energy prices, which surged 7.5% on the month and were up 4.1% on a 12-month basis, gasoline prices, which increased 11.2% on the month and just shy of 60% for the 12-month period. Airline fares were one of the few sectors which declined last month, seeing a 1.8% decline in June, though still up 34.1% from a year ago. The meat, poultry, fish, and eggs category also dropped 0.4% for the month, but are up 11.7% on an annual basis. For workers, these numbers meant another hit to the wallet as inflation-adjusted incomes based on average hourly earnings fell 1% for the month and down 3.6% over the year. The Bank of Canada's shock decision to raise interest rates by 1 percentage point has taken global markets and Canadian borrowers by surprise, and ramped up expectations more central banks will follow with supersized hikes. The Bank of Canada also lifted its policy rate from 1.5% to 2.5%, the highest it's been since 2008, in a bid to arrest inflation. This move has been yet another stoke in many economists' concerns that the central banks risk accelerating the global economy's path into deep recession by not coordinating their hikes. We saw something like this in the early 1980s when the Fed was fighting inflation hard, according to Professor Obstfeld of the University of Berkeley. He explains that in the 80s, the dollar appreciated to stratospheric heights, and depreciations that the US trade partners experienced hampered their efforts to disinflation, so they raised interest rates probably more than they would have otherwise. This resulted in a very deep global recession, which spilled over to emerging markets in the form of a debt crisis in the 1980s. ANZ and Suncorp are now in late-stage talks to finalize a deal that would see ANZ acquire Suncorp. The deal, involving a big cash offer from ANZ, will be signed and announced as early as Monday, according to sources involved in the talks. Fund manager sources told the AFR that both Macquarie and UBS equity capital markets teams have started to work on an equity raising of $3.5 billion.